Hey, great to meet you, Nick. Can you tell us a little bit about Air, please?
Sure. So Air is a new product from JetBrains. We are building what is now called Agentic Development Environment, which means it's not just a chat interface to operate with your agent, but we actually try to guide you through the whole environment so you are able to navigate your project, laser focusedly manage the context you pass to the agent, and do the review a very similar way like you do in ID. The, the core difference is that we built with the idea that agent is a first-class citizen. You are not there to write code yourself. You're there to guide the agent, and that implies a lot of different strategies for the UX. That's why we started to build it as a separate product instead of like plugins into IntelliJ. We believe that we still need to evolution in the way on how to interact with agents, because there are a lot of problems when people start working with agents more. It's a mental fatigue, it's a different way of thinking, it's a different way of navigating and like setting up the environment you have.
So what does that look like sort of day to day? So at the moment, for example, I might have an editor open, so say Golang, I've been doing a lot of Go recently, and I'd be writing in Markdown files some of my specifications, my requirements, and detailing it, then handing that off to a CLI agent and letting it work. What would that workflow look like in Air?
So it looks like you're leaning towards the so-called spec-driven development more nowadays. For Air, it means that you can do that job directly within Air, but unlike just like generating the specs, you're planning all together with the agent. So this is more an interactive mode rather than just like pure delegation. When you plan that, you usually want to understand your product yourself. So like get a refresh, like what the files is about, what this method is about, so how to navigate with that. And by using Air, you're able to actually plan according to the code rather than try to build on your intent solely. So it's more sticky to the code itself rather than just putting the files. But rather than that, it's kind of fine. If you want to do that, we have a very nice built-in UX. So you start with any agent you prefer. We currently support 4 agents within the JetBrains CI subscription with ACP registry coming very soon. You can already set up whatever ACP agent you want. And then you just click on plan. Let's say I want to do this, refer some parts of the code. Agent builds a plan. And then within the one session, we suggest to implement that directly. The cool thing is that you can switch between agents between these steps. So let's say you like to plan with Gemini models, and then you want to implement that with Anthropic models and Anthropic agents. And after you implement things, we actually have a nice built-in code review. So you can review the code yourself. You have the same diff, and you have an ability to put comments directly to the code. So you just click on the line of code and say, like, I want this to be slightly different. Or alternatively, you can do that with the agents. And again, you can say, I prefer for a review to roast this commit with Codex. And then Codex uses the same UX. So it actually creates comments using our internal tools to add this to the UI first. So you can see that those comments are coming from Codex, those comments are coming from you. And then with one click, you just get it back to the implementation.
So you're right, I do lean slightly towards spec-driven development, and I have a workflow that's based around me. Sounds a little bit similar to what you described for Air, so maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here. So I take my intent and say I want to take one of my coding challenges. I want to build a clone of Redis.
Yep.
I describe that at high level. I go back and forth with it, iterating on the requirements. I get it to generate some requirements, and then build a plan from that. And this is all from a set of skills that I've put together.
Yep.
So by the sounds of it, you've got a lot of that built into Air, so it's already there.
So can you elaborate on that a bit? So what exactly are you doing?
So I'm taking very high level intent, so maybe like 1 or 2 sentence. I want to build a clone of Redis. It's going to do, these 8 commands from the 200 or so that Redis supports. I'm getting it to iterate through with the requirements, ask me questions, have a discussion about the architecture. Then I'm getting it to write out a requirements document, then use that requirements document to generate a plan. From that plan, the list of tasks, and then I'm having it go away and build. So it sounds like you've incorporated a lot of that workflow directly in Air.
Yeah, I mean, it's very native to what we see. I think the general community is leaning towards this planning then implementing, where you plan interactively, you invest a lot of time to actually build up a plan you like, and then you just click implement and forget it. For this, I won't say that we built something completely different. So we just want to respect the existing flow, what ecosystem currently does with agents. But we already think of, okay, what can we do next? So you have a plan. It's kind of large. So you would expect agent to implement that within 30 minutes, maybe an hour. For that, we give you a nice way to do things in parallel. So we have all the built-in isolation, things like worktrees, Docker containers, or coming soon in the clouds, which means that you don't need to stare on your screen. Most likely you've already configured your agent so it will not ask you for specific permissions. So it will just do the job and verify. And with that, we just let you get more using Air, because you can actually navigate between multiple tasks without interfering the current job.
Cool, that sounds really interesting. So you mentioned context management a minute ago. How are you doing that? What's the approach to context management?
So currently we do a lot to help the human developer with the context management, or things like LSPs, which help you to navigate with the code and understand your project better, especially when you want to bring an intent to the agent, which is unambiguous and actually fits into the code rather than the plain English intent. But there is the motion to give more tools to the agents themselves, so they can do the job using your toolchain or using the context you have. This is a large portion of problems we still have to solve, because when you work with the projects with the team, then this context most likely is not just your part of the context. You cannot just have all this tribal knowledge within your space. So what we currently do with Air, and it's coming to the preview soon, is the team management tool, where you have your project set up for the whole team. So people do not waste much more time to configure their agent every time, but rather than they can manage the context, which is popping up to the agent, and version that, so work with that the same way as you work with the code. The other direction is to give more tools to the agents, and some of those tools are helping with navigating the source code and translating your intents into the source code. We have one of them built in. It's called Embark CLI. So it comes with skills. You can use to search up your code base. So we index the code base first, and then you do the search. It already works with Junie, and we see quite nice results because the agent wastes less time grabbing again and again the same type of files, but they're just using the search for that. It actually saves a lot of tokens. So it seems that giving more tools and giving the UX to plug in tools on the fly to the specific agent without polluting the context, it's going to be the way to go, especially given that a lot of tools are coming around, a lot of tools like Android CLI coming around, and other stuff which is directly related to the type of project you do.
Okay, and the other side of that is this concept of context lock, context poisoning, and the dumb zone, where most agents, when they get past about 100,000 tokens in context window, start getting less relevant. How are you managing that?
We actually don't do that on purpose, because we treat the agent as a worker. So instead, we want to build up the system where you can actually operate as the manager for these agents. And especially those agents are doing a nice job compacting and managing the context themselves. So we don't need to actually interfere into the partness of the agent, but rather we want to make sure that we have all the markdown and plan serialized. So even if the agent in the middle of the session decides to compact everything, then we still have this markdown persistent so they can read it again. For the context, we have a lot of feature requests to actually let us understand what is the context right now. I think it's a nice way to visualize how things are broken today, but unless you have something to fix it, that doesn't help. So it just gives you more frustration and anxiety over the context you currently have.
Okay, does that mean then you're handing off work to lots of sub-agents for each task?
It really depends. So again, we've tried multiple things. We've tried things with orchestration agents, with the sub-agents. What we currently do, we try to separate the job by the agent based on the target goals. So I mentioned the flow we have, which is a plan, implement, review, and those are three different sub-sessions. So we do minimize the context radius for each of the agents, and it works really nicely because if you just ask the agent to do kind of adversarial review, then it brings like very good results without having all this. But generally speaking, we now working on the idea that when you work with a task, it doesn't mean that you work within one session. It's just like a technical limitation you have, being like the session which agent can pull up. But rather than that, you rather work with multiple sessions which you logically attribute to the same task. And if you try to build up a new session based on the intent you had before, then it's really hard to configure the system so the agent knows that they can just pull the chat history from there. I hope that with that, we're going to have like a container for the task, which is a very logical thing with both persistent files and chat histories. And then whenever you add a new agent or whenever you add a new quality gate to that task, that works naturally because the agent is aware that there are other things happened before them, so they can read if needed. But generally speaking, I think we treat agents as agents, so we don't need to guide every step, but rather we want to build the environment for the agent where they have an access to tools and access to external systems and the access to the intent and the context driven before.
So it sounds a little bit like you built an agent memory system then, so the agents can sort of have a shared memory of state over time.
Kind of like that. It has both the persistent memory for the project, the memory for the user if you want to define it. But you're right. It requires some persistence of the memory for specific tasks because the task is a unit of work, not the session. The session is just a way to express the intent and get some result. But you actually want, as a developer, to solve the task and probably then just to discuss it with the PM, discuss it with the QA team. So this unit of work is very important to be portable between systems and also between agents.
Awesome. And you also mentioned cloud there. So are you coming to cloud agents soon then?
Yes. Actually, we're documenting that right now within JetBrains, and we started to invite design partners for that. The idea of cloud agents is very different based on the perspective you are taking. So for individual developers, local agents work just nice. So why do we need this? The only thing for the developers who are using cloud agents, they highlight that is the idea that I want to close my lids of the laptop, right? So, or I want to have like a way to start the task when I got the inspiration. Would it be on the weekend or late night? So I use my phone to just like start this task and then I'll figure it out locally. But if you think of the team perspective and the reason why teams want to automate things and like add agents to the loop is that they have a large portion of toil tasks they don't want to steer. First, because they know that agents are capable of doing this. They have an experience of doing this in an interactive mode. So why do I need to do this again and again if I can just like ask this agent to perform automatically by the trigger? And if so, I don't want the agent to use my local machine, right? So I don't want to be online so the agent do the automation. That's why we bring the infrastructure for the agents with secure sandboxes, which you can configure. So the agent is capable to doing things and then let you review the result. If you need to review the result, because in some cases it just should pass the CI and you're fine.
Yeah, I'm one of those that, I work for myself now, so I have flexible hours. So occasionally I get the inspiration in the gym, so it's quite nice. My phone's in there playing Spotify. It's nice to pick it up and be able to, hammer out an idea into an agent and have it work in the background. So when can I expect to play with that then?
I cannot share the date right now. I would say that the key quality gateway for us is not the date itself. It's more than we are confident as JetBrains that it plays nicely. So we have this integration currently testing both in air, but we know that our ecosystem IntelliJ users are quite large. So we already have this in documenting for the AI assistant. You can start this task directly from the AI assistant. And we are playing with a very raw mobile version of that just to like complement everything. But I would say like summer definitely we will be able to try that.
Awesome. I look forward to that. So if anyone wants to learn more about Air, where's the best place for them to go?
So The best place to learn what Air is about today is air.dev. This is the website with landing page explaining all of the things and like the documentation related to that. We have the nice Twitter handle, get some air. So you can find us there and see how it's going. And yeah, definitely you can reach me out directly if you have questions. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So people just dropping me some bugs and stuff they would like to have in here or would like to be fixed. And we love that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nik.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having me. Cheers.
Pleasure. Thank you.